Well, hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Roger Durling, the Executive Director of the Santa Barbara International Film Festival. And we're going to chat with writer, director, actress Lynn Chen and her directorial debut, I Will Make You Mine, and the co-star Goh Nakamura. The film has been getting rave reviews. The Hollywood Reporter says that it's beautifully shot. IndieWire says that the chemistry between all of the characters is harmoniously electric, like the soft feedback that buzzes out of an amp when it's turned back on. Before we chat with our guest, let's take a look at I Will Make You Mine.
I just want to say before I sing this, don't be offended, okay? This was like kind of a long time ago.
Yeah, no
I didn't think I was gonna ever see you ever again.
Got kids of your own?
No.
But you want them.
I mean, I don't even have a boyfriend right now, so you guys got any single friends? Oh shit, it's Go.
The guitar guy?
Yeah.
I got your new song.
You finally writing again?
Here to help.
Josh is cheating on me.
Thinking about divorce? Should I text Go? See if he still has a crush on you?
I don't care.
Yeah, right.
I don't care.
You're a horrible liar.
Go. You're late. Where are you?
I asked her to marry me. She obviously did not want that. I don't know what else I can do, you know?
Oh god, that's depressing.
I am depressed.
Did you ever think you'd be a full-time dad?
I always thought I'd have a family, but I also thought that I would still be able to play music, you know? Like you.
Do not compare your life with mine.
You should still be playing.
I just wonder if my race has already been run, you know? This is my oldest friend, Rachel.
How old are you?
We don't ask grown-ups that.
All that history you guys have, I can't compete.
That random musician, that Go guy, you're having drinks with him in his motel room?
I can't be this girl. I've got a life I've got to figure out too.
What are we doing?
Wait. I gotta drink more.
Lynn, for those who are not aware, there has been two films that preceded this. This is a trilogy. Although your film stands completely on its own, what inspired you to do a third one?
Honestly, the reason I decided to do the third movie was because I wanted to finish the trilogy. When we had done Surrogate Valentine in 2011 and immediately did Daylight Savings the year after, Dave Boyle, who directed those two movies, said this is going to be the lowest budget trilogy ever made. And maybe he was joking about that, but in my head, I thought it should be a trilogy because each movie ended with a cliffhanger. So when he and I were hiking a few years ago, and I found my DVD and it said the trilogy continues, I just very casually asked him, are you going to finish that trilogy? Because I'm not doing anything next year. I'd like to work. And he said, no, I'm not gonna do it. And immediately my heart just kind of broke as a fan of the series, because I wanted to know what was going to happen. And also because somewhere in the back of my mind, I was like, oh, I don't have to say goodbye to Go and Rachel and these other characters. One day we'll revisit it and it's like, great, we'll have fun at that time. And when he said that, I was just like, no, that's not acceptable. That's not okay with me. And so I just said, like, well, what if I help make it happen? I don't even know what I meant when I said that, because I had never directed anything. I had never produced anything. I had never written anything. I'd never been behind the camera, even though I'd been in front of the camera for over 3 decades. And I just was like, he said to me, okay, I'll help you do it. I had like this fire lit under me. Like immediately I emailed Go and I emailed like Yiming and I emailed Ayako, and I was just like, hey guys, if I make the third movie, because Dave said I could, and he's gonna help me. Will you guys be in it? And they were like, sure. And I still don't think anybody took me seriously. So then when I went, thank you, Go. Well, then I went immediately to Thanksgiving with my family in Boston, and I opened my computer when I was on the plane ride there, and I just started writing, and then I didn't stop until I got back to LA after Thanksgiving, and I had the whole first draft done, and I sent it to Go, and I sent it to Dave immediately, and was like, here you go, what do you think? And they were like, this is great, let's do this. And from there, I just wanted to keep it going. Like, instead of wanting to wait for investors, and instead of wanting to like see if we could maybe patch it together traditionally, I was just like, no, let's do it. Let's kickstart it. Let's fund it. Let's get the group together. We'll have a small, it'll be the same small group. It'll be like, camp. And we'll all get back together and make this movie. And a year later, right before Thanksgiving, we were done.
I'm actually interested in the fact that you bring up Thanksgiving, because one of the qualities that I found fascinating watching your film is how these characters regress in it's kind of like a family dynamic, and the way that we regress when we act with younger people that we haven't seen in a long time. Can you speak about that?
Yeah, I think probably subconsciously, when I was on that plane, I was like dreading the question I get asked every Thanksgiving or Christmas, which is, oh, what are you doing now? Why aren't you famous yet? Like, I always felt like as an actor, I'd go back and people would be like, why aren't you Sandra Oh? And it would just be like, it's a little harder than that. And you'd see like ex-boyfriends, and you'd see your old best friend, and whenever you saw them, and you saw what path their life had taken. I think as like somebody who's worked as an artist for so long, there's always the side of me that's like, oh, maybe I should like just get that job, just quit the business, just like that looks really nice. They have a nice house. They're really comfortable. They always have a parking spot. Like, this looks so comfortable. I would love to see if I could do that kind of life. And I mean, that's not to say I might not want it, because it still sounds very appealing to me, but it wasn't the path that I took. But you always think about that when you go back and you're confronted with people who you used to like hang out with and party with, and like now your lives couldn't be more different.
Mm-hmm. And Go, what was it like for you to, after all these years, to come back? Of course, the character's named after you, but it is a fictionalized version.
It is, yeah.
What was it like to come back, after all these years, to come back to this role?
Yeah, it was like a reunion. Really, it was just putting on old shoes, kind of. Like, I had such a great time working with Lynn and Dave, and Yaming and the other movies that I don't know. It was just really comfortable. Lynn made everything super comfortable, as did Dave, and I hadn't thought about acting for whatever the gap of time was, so that was always challenging. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of do justice to playing myself.
Mm-hmm.
I guess.
Why, Lynn? Why did you focus on Rachel, Yaming, and Erica? Those particular three women?
Well, honestly, selfishly, it was because I wanted something for myself. When I first started writing, I was like, oh, maybe since 7 years have passed, we start off with Go, but then it's how Rachel sees Go. And when I started writing that, it became very apparent that Go's story had already kind of like been told in the first two movies. And that when we see him now, he's just sort of running on autopilot. He's still like the same version of himself that he was, like, just sort of like you press pause and you gave him a kid, and then he's just like running smoothly along that line. Whereas like everyone else went on with their lives and kept growing and kept having all these other things happen to them. And so that's why I was like, okay, we're going to put a pause on Go, and we're going to focus on these women. But there's also a line in the very first movie, Surrogate Valentine, that Go says, he's describing his growing up with sisters to Rachel. And he says to her, I was drowning in a sea of estrogen. And when I thought of that line, I thought, oh, you know, the first two movies, Go always has a male sidekick, usually like a doofus. And they're like in a car and they're like smelly dudes who haven't showered, like eating junk food and not sleeping. And I was just like, obviously, I can't tell that story because I don't know what that experience is like as a woman, but I do know what it's like to like those kind of people and want to be around those people. So that's why I was like, I'm going to drown Go in a sea of estrogen. Not only is he not going to have any dudes to hang out with in this movie, I'm even going to give him a daughter. Like I thought for a split second, I might give him a son because I knew like plenty of people who had sons who probably could have let me use their kid for the movie. But I was like, no, he has to like have like that past has to be like kind of over. Now he just like coasts like as the ghost of who he used to be amongst all of these women and is just like existing in this plane. So that's why I decided to do that.
And was it conscious the fact that these three women are not only wrestling with the past, but I love how one is dealing with being an Asian artist. The other one is dealing with being childless, and dealing with her marriage, and the third is dealing with the loss of a parent. So they're all having a form of like midlife crisis.
Totally, yeah.
Was that something that was important for you to have those three sort of lines of struggle within the women?
Yeah, I mean, all of these characters, Go included, all are some sort of piece of me. They all represent parts of my life that I feel like I've been dealing with for the past decade. And, you know, like even like the parts with the father, like that's my dad's picture in it. It was like almost like a recreation of his funeral, that scene. And like there's so many things I can relate to with all those characters. And for me, something that was really important to me, I mean, even though I never sought out to be a filmmaker, I, as somebody who's been in a lot of Asian American cinema over the years, really wanted to see something where everyone was Asian, but wasn't talking about being Asian. Like that there would be no reference to dying grandfather. I mean, even though there's a dying father, but like that it wasn't about the cultural significance of everything, and that there wouldn't be any karate and nobody spoke with an accent. Like I just wanted it to reflect kind of what my life is like. Also, selfishly, I wanted to put other actors like Tamlyn Tamita, who I love and want to work with, but I won't get to because it's so rare that you see any sort of script that has more than one Asian female lead in it. And I wanted to create that opportunity where we could have all of the Asian actresses who I admire, who usually only hang out with each other because we're sitting in a waiting room, waiting to be judged, waiting to see if one of us will get that one part. And I wanted to give us all the opportunity. And I also wanted to show that we could all be very different, because I feel like so often casting or producers look and they're like, no, she's Asian and they kind of look the same, and people will get confused. I just wanted to see if I could prove them wrong.
Oh, great. Go, music plays such an important part in this film, and the characters have at times difficulty expressing their feelings and their emotions, and music comes into play. You know, can you talk about the role of music and how important it was for the movie and for your performance?
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it on the head when you said, you know, it's easier to express certain things in a song or like a sound. Yeah, if you go back to Surrogate Valentine, the whole premise was, I think originally it was Dave, the director of that movie. His idea was a traveling director going around film festivals, touring as a film festival. But I met him and he was like, maybe I'll turn this into a songwriter, singer-songwriter who's kind of touring around. So that's kind of like where it became more of a music film, I guess. And, yeah.
And Lynn, the 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 speaking is very succinct. Is that something that you were striving for? I mean, I love the fact that a lot is communicated, but very succinctly within the characters.
Yeah, I mean, that was partially because the first two movies were also written similarly, where the dialogue was like just yes, no, like one liners, like what back and forth. But also, I wanted to let everyone feel comfortable improving if they wanted to or if they chose to. And I also feel like these particular characters have a shorthand with one another. And that I know that with people that I know really well and feel really comfortable with, there's no need to really explain what's happening, that we can just communicate very succinctly. So I think that that probably was why. But also, you know, I'm not, this was my first script that I had written, a first feature film I had written. And I think because I'm intimidated, to be honest, by like comedy scripts that I've read, where like everything is so polished and everything everyone says is like so eloquent and so like such like the perfect soundbite, that like I wanted to take that pressure off myself of like writing quotable lines and just like write the way that I would speak. And so that's why.
And Go, this, you were handed a script by Lynn, and it was a fictionalized version of who you are.
Or was it?
Is that something that it makes it easier, or it's just or more difficult to balance the fictionalized one?
I guess it's like Larry David or something. You want to have like a certain percentage of yourself in there, but yeah, of course there's like certain things that I wouldn't do in real life, like leave a sandwich on someone's floor or something. But yeah, it was definitely difficult. I'm not even, I don't consider myself an actor, so it's just, that's where I don't know. I just wanted to be an instrument in this symphony,
He was both he and Yiming were definitely like, fine violins that I could like implement into my little orchestra.
That's cool. Yeah.
I mean, is it the fact that, and it's for both of you, is it the fact that you've done two movies prior to this one, or because there was so much in between the lines that I could feel and hear, like there was backstories that were understood between the different characters. Is that something that you communicated to them, Lynn, their backstory, or is something that it was already understood and they didn't need to? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I wrote a whole backstory for everyone. Like it was almost like the Bible that everyone got a copy of, which was basically an explanation of everything that happened in my mind, at least, of what had happened between these characters in the 7 years since the last time we saw them. So what I did was very similar to what I would do for a backstory for my own acting work. Usually I go through a script and I look through, and every place where I'm mentioned, I see how my relationship with that character, like I build upon like the history of what that their history would be. And so I did that with these characters, where like if they were there, I would go back to the first two movies, see what was fact, and then see what was fact in I Will Make You Mine, and then just try to bridge all of that of how do we get from here to here in 7 years. And so everyone had this like very rich, very detailed history. And when I sent out, like before rehearsals, I sent it out to everybody. And then that's what we did a lot during rehearsal, was like talk through basically what had happened, all the things that happened. And so I'm glad that, that translated and that you could feel that, because, in the end, it feels like, you do all that work and then you actually, there's no mention of it. But I felt it was important not to have to, give too much to the audience. I was hoping that they would just like pick up on it without having to really, have it explained to them.
And on the same line, how difficult was it to, the film stands on its own, by itself. Were you constantly aware in the writing and in the scenes that the movie needed to be a standalone piece?
I knew it had to be standalone just because I know the nature business-wise that like most people will probably go see this and then may not see the other two, or may just go back to see the other two, but that this would be an introduction to a new type of audience. And so, I even considered shooting it in color for like a millisecond. We thought, oh, because this movie is the female perspective, it would make sense that it's like the Wizard of Oz, they walk through the store and now it's like the woman and it's bright and it's pink and it's colorful, but then I did the whole time. And, if you go back to the first two movies, I'm pretty confident that you won't be able to find any overlap that doesn't make sense. Like you won't go back and be like, aha, that's not true. And I will make you mine because in Surrogate Valentine, they say this, because that was something I was always really careful to be true to those two. But at the same time, I didn't want you having had to watch the first two movies in order for that to make sense.
Correct. I know, and it totally stands on its own. I mean, you watch it, and it's its own world, which is terrific. But I mean, following up about the color and the lack of color. How in your new version, this is your world. How did the black and white fit within the context of this movie?
So the reason the first two movies were shot in black and white was because Dave wanted to make a very, well, first of all, because it's beautiful, but also because he wanted to make a movie that when you shot it would move really quickly, that you wouldn't have to wait for setting up lights and to gel them. And he just wanted to like have things flow, have a very small footprint on set. And that's why the first two movies are in black and white. And so this movie, when I talked with Bill Otto, who was the DP for the first two movies, and Bill had at this point like kind of stopped DPing and was teaching at a university in
Utah.
Where was he? In Utah.
Yeah.
And he and I had a long talk, and he convinced me, because like even though we were like maybe it could be color, he said ultimately it's your decision, but I'd present this to you. What if, because the first movie and the second movie, if you look at them, it's like it matures gradually. The first movie, the camera that they shot on had like someone's like blood stain on it or something. It was like a far, like really crappy camera.
It was owned by a hunter.
They just converted it from color into black and white. And the second one, like they got a much better camera and better lenses. And he's like, what if it's this camera? Because we ended up shooting on David Fincher's camera, the red monochrome, which there's only a few of them in the world. And part of that was because Bill's job allowed him to be able to use, he had to learn a new skill, and he had never shot on this particular camera. So that was going to help alleviate our budget, which obviously as a producer on the film, I was like, oh, okay, interesting. That sounds like a good idea. But also the fact that like he promised he would deliver a more mature version of the third movie so that it would tie it to the first movie automatically in being black and white, but also that it would just look like all of us had grown up. And that was really important to me. And I'm really glad that we did it, because I feel like so much of the mood of the movie has to do with that. And because I did end up doing most of the costumes, it just made it so much easier on myself. Like, because a lot of the women's costumes came from my own closet. I could just be like, oh my God, an orange t-shirt, totally fine. I don't have to think about the color palette. Like, we can just give her this orange t-shirt, it's fine. So it did like make my job a lot easier. And then once we were obviously shooting in the monochrome camera, there was no going back. You know, I kind of like limits like that. I think it helps you creatively.
So that fabulous eyewear you were wearing, that's that Rachel wears, that was your eyewear?
Yeah, actually those sunglasses were all donated by a sunglass person I know named TC Charton. That's the brand. And it's particularly for Asian faces, because we don't have bridges to our nose. Usually when we wear sunglasses, they fall. So she was a fan and had like made sunglasses or designed sunglasses specifically for each of our faces. And so the poster of the movie, which is right behind me, we're all wearing her sunglasses on it,
Well,
like particularly for our faces.
As you can tell, I love
Oh, you love
eyewear.
sunglasses.
And Rachel's eyewear gave me envy. You have wonderful scenes with Gay Mean, who is herself a musician. What was that dynamic, and how was it working with a fellow musician and artist?
It was so fun. I mean, I've known Ye Ming for a really long time, and actually, when we were casting the second movie, I had played a show with her just a couple months before that, and we just had so much fun, just kind of hanging out in the backstage, just sort of like playing songs together. And I was like, oh, this is a really when we were thinking of the character in the second movie, it was just kind of a no-brainer to try, just because we had that kind of chemistry. So it was just like hanging out with friends again. So, which was like the entire trilogy, just hanging with friends and turning a camera on.
Having recently lost a parent myself, I was really moved. I'm calling you Rachel.
It's fine.
With the visit to buying the dress and the breakdown, and it's such a.
That happened to me.
Oh, in real life.
That actually happened to me in real life, and yeah, when it happened, while it was happening, while I was having my breakdown, while I was buying that dress, I remember thinking when I left, because I felt so kind of like ashamed of myself. I remember thinking that was not for nothing. That I'm going to use that one day. And so when we were shooting it, there was a split second when we were cutting the movie that we were thinking maybe we should cut the scene to make it move quicker. I was like, no, we can't do that. We can't do that, or else my breakdown was for nothing.
What were the biggest challenges filming your first movie, Lynn?
Well, I was surprised that a lot of it didn't come from the actual pre-production or actual production of it. A lot of that felt very similar to making movies as an actor for me, just that I had a lot more work to do. It almost like, because of the scale we were doing it at, I was doing a lot of stuff myself. So it almost reminded me of when I was in high school, doing the pajama game at Cresskill High School, and like doing everything kind of myself, and then like showing up with my friends and like putting on this play. And like Goh said, it was really felt like hanging out with friends. So like a lot of that felt easy and manageable, in the sense that all my friends are now super professionals at the top of the game, like know exactly what they're doing. So it's really easy to trust when your team is that good. But the hardest part for me, surprisingly, was when we were all done and I was editing the movie with my husband, who edited it. And it suddenly became something where it wasn't as simple. When something wasn't working, it wasn't as simple as we'll rewrite the scene, or we'll just, redo it. Because the idea of doing a reshoot, I didn't think I had it in me. I didn't think we could find the budget. I just didn't know how to fix things. And when you see that you didn't shoot enough footage, or it's just not how you had imagined it to be, that feeling, like emotionally, I was not prepared for. And that took like a lot of self-talk and like meditation and long walks on the beach, because it really was something that I had to like find within myself to trust my own voice and my own initial instinct, instead of like doing what I thought would please other people. And then there were other things where I would have to, forego what I wanted and what my instinct was telling me for the sake of the movie, which was also really difficult to like get rid of scenes and things that I really felt like, oh, this is for the movie. I'm going to have to just do it, because like, who cares what I like? when the audience does not like it. So that was difficult for me.
And you talked about earlier, you talked about doing a lot of improv during the film. How did you handle your own scenes and directing your own scenes vis-a-vis the other scenes? Was there a difference? Did you block things ahead of time, or just
I always made sure any scene that I was in that I did a thorough rehearsal, because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't spending too much time going and looking at playback on the day. I wanted to make sure that, you know, we weren't wasting time on set, like deciding where to go. So all of my scenes with Mike Fayola, who played my husband, we like spent a day rehearsing and blocking that in person. All my scenes with Goh, we already rehearsed. And all of that, you know, I felt like I just wanted to make it easy and do it exactly as written, and not have to worry or do too much playing, because I felt like I just had to make my day. But then when I was behind the camera and behind the monitor, and I just got to like see them, then I felt like I could like take more chances, and I could let them play a little bit more. So like almost all the scenes with Goh and Ye Ming, you know, we did everything as written, and then I would let them sort of riff off of it. And also like, I always let them take the dialogue and say it as they would. Because the last thing I want to see is somebody being like, I can't believe I have to say this line, like in their eyes. Like I didn't want to have to put that on anybody, especially when they're playing a version of themselves. So I always gave them the freedom to like loosen up the language. And then especially, even though I'm a musician, I certainly have not written songs in the way that Goh and Ye Ming have. So like a lot of that I didn't even script. I was just like, you guys do it the way that you would do it, please. And then I will like give you markers and things to hit, but otherwise like just do this, because it was very important to me as a musician to watch a movie where the songwriting process was as close to the songwriting process as it would be for a musician, not where they're sitting down to write a song and then 2 minutes later the song is harmonized, perfect, memorized, like all of it's like instrumentation, everyone knows what they're doing.
That's
Like
how I do it.
I wanted to really feel like we knew what that was like, and so I felt like that had to be a Goh and Ye Ming thing.
There's a very powerful moment, which is the scene with the first scene with Goh and Ye Ming, where she says, "Do not compare your life with mine." Is that something that you had scripted, Lynn? Or
yeah, that scene was pretty scripted. I'd say anytime that they were actually writing music, that was more improv, but most of the scenes were as scripted. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Goh with you know, Lynn mentioned about the creative process with the songs, and how it was important to capture that. What was it like from your end as a musician / actor to capture those moments?
Oh, it was so fun. We had so much fun. Yeah, it was just like putting two kids in a sandbox with toys. So very enjoyable.
And Lynn, what is next? What are you working on? What are we gonna see you do next, now that you're a director?
Well, I actually been working a lot acting wise, and since I stopped directing, and I have 2 movies that I star in that will come out later this year. I don't know what the film festival circuit will be like, but obviously if they start to tour, I will go along and do both of those movies. So that is something I first and foremost still feel like my heart is in acting, and I love doing it. And so I'm also attached to 2 other films that are in production right now to just act in. But that said, I have been having meetings with different production companies about my next project, and I have a lot of ideas. But I also feel like I'm not in a rush. I think I have this luxury that most filmmakers don't have, and that I've been in this industry, and I make my living now doing this other thing that I love, that I don't feel the pressure to just have to do something for a paycheck. And so because it takes so long to make a movie or to invest your time and energy into a project, I don't really want to do something unless I really feel A, I can do it, and B, I can like give the emotion and the time to it. There's also the piece of me that is like, I don't want to say yes to something that I don't feel passionate about if it's taking away the opportunity from somebody else who would really love it and who could really get a lot out of it. Because it's just way too much time to just say yes for no reason. At least in my head, like I feel like I just want to wait till the time is right, and so I'm not in a rush. But that said, I feel like once I get time constraints on me, like the second someone gives me a green light, I'm like, I'm like, 1 week and I'll give you a first draft. But like until then, I'm just sort of like, you know, promoting this movie, working on like my acting craft and like preparing for these other films. And I'm trying to like do like a lot of dreaming right now. I feel like that's like really important. And that's something that it's a big theme in the movie of like not letting your dreams feel like they have an expiration date. And, you know, as a woman who has been in this industry for this long, who is over the age of 40, who's a woman of color, I have felt like ever since I got into this industry, I have felt like 40 was the place where I was going to be put out to pasture and it was going to be over. And I made this movie also because I wanted to prove that that wasn't true to myself. And now that I know that that's true, I'm not itching to like get on that treadmill and keep hustling. More, I'm in, like, I want to feed that side of me who feels like, you know what, it's going to be fine. You don't need to hammer things away in order to make things happen. You can just dream and you can believe and you can hope. And you know, like hope is a big theme also in this movie. Like, I just feel like artists, we don't get a chance to really take the time to feel like we're doing something for ourselves. So as long as I don't have somebody yelling at me to do something for them, I'm gonna do that for myself.
Yeah, there's so many wonderful, and I told you before we went on air, there's so many wonderful themes that resonate after finishing the film. And you mentioned, you know, follow your dreams, you know, hold on to your sense of wonder. And I love the fact that, you know, the characters, when the movie first begins, you know, they're comparing each other. They're comparing their lives to each other. And you basically tell us, you know, it's healthy to stop doing that, you know, to be satisfied with where you are in your life. It's and you do it so succinctly, you know, it's not preachy. You just show us there's 3 women that come to term and in satisfaction with their place in life.
Well, I feel like it's not our place to judge others, you know? Like, I feel like sometimes we were talking before about like social media and like when you look up like your ex and you see what they're up to. And I feel like something that's happening a lot now, especially, you know, people are looking up people who they used to know. And sometimes you see that they've ended up with somebody who you're like, really? That person? Oh. And it's not up to us to determine whether they're happy or not. You know, maybe we're not happy that they ended up together, but they did it for a reason. They didn't do it because they wanted to be miserable. And so therefore, like, I think even though with the ending, like some people might be like, I didn't want that to be the ending. I wanted Go to end up with Ye Ming, or I wanted, you know, like I feel like no matter what, part of growing up is this acceptance. It is, yes, it's about dreams and it's about hope, but at the same time, a lot of what changes between like your 20s and your 30s and your 40s and beyond is like the acceptance of what the reality is, and still being able to dream and hope from there with new dreams and new hopes. Because so often we think, if I didn't make it to this place, then like, that's it, I give up. And I think most people who are happy later in life realize like that what they wanted at age 20 is really not what they want at age 40 or 50.
Exactly. Well, Go has a treat for us. Go, would you play a song for us?
I would love to.
I'll mute myself.
That took a lot of convincing.
I'll play a different song from the ending of the movie. This is a song called Suitcase. Gather everything you need, a change of clothes and toiletries and a book to read. It's a long flight. Security won't let me by. To see you off, to see me cry. Call me please. It's and your suitcase is good to go by the table. Your flight's on time. Carry on, carry on like a baby. Somewhere there's a room where everything I've ever lost is hiding. And everyone that I've ever lost resides. Somewhere in my dreams there is a house with 20 rooms on fire. What do I take with me? In my suitcase is good to go by the table. I carry on, carry on, carry on, baby. Somewhere in my book of dreams I'm paging you. I courtesy to call me please. Say that you stay with me. Gather everything you own, your shoes, your clothes, a book of poems, the letters that spell out my heart to you. And it's soon, but I'm sure we'll know when we're able. And someday two suitcases on the steps of the door that we can call home.
Oh,
Thank you.
wonderful, Go.
Thanks so much.
No, my goodness, thank you. What a treat. Lynn, when is the film going to be available for people to see?
It'll be out on VOD, DVD, and Blu-ray on May 26th. It's available for pre-order now on iTunes and also on Amazon and Target for the DVD and the Blu-ray.
And the film is I Will Make You Mine, written and directed by Lynn Chen.
Thank you. Yes.
Amazing. Thank you
Please
both
spread the
for
word.
being here. Your
Thanks
film
so
is
much, Roger.
Thanks so much, Roger.
It's a beautiful, beautiful, gorgeous film. And I can't wait. Literally, I cannot wait to see what you give us next.
Thank you. I'm really excited.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
Thanks
so
everyone for
much.
coming.
Thanks for watching.